Welcome to Books on Point. Corporate activist and businesswoman Nolitha Fakude has spent her 29-year career focusing on the development of women and marginalized communities in the workplace and society. A passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion, she's best known for driving transformation. In her memoir, Boardroom Dancing, Nolitha tells the story of her corporate life from her childhood as a shopkeeper's daughter in the Eastern Cape to her very senior positions at JSE-listed companies, including Woolworths, Nedbank and Sasol. She's currently the chairwoman of Anglo American. Boardroom Dancing is her personal journey as well as a lesson for South Africans committed to transformation of boardrooms and the economy.
The inspiration was, one, the fact that I had been working for 29 years and I felt that I needed to reflect on how best to move forward from a personal perspective, but also the fact that we're celebrating 25 years of our democracy this year. I needed to document our history in terms of the corporate transformation.
And take me through the idea and behind the title of the book. I'm sure you had numerous names in mind. Why did you settle for Boardroom Dancing?
Well, I've realized that in terms of the activities and the processes we go through within a board or any meeting for that matter, it's around dancing, because you've got to define what culture is in place, what values are there, and more importantly, what are the moves that different people are making. And also within the South African perspective, we all know that we have had to toy to be able to get our voices heard on the streets. But in a boardroom, you've got to think about how do I make sure this toy translates into something that is going to be more activism than less of it.
A lot of leaders say that there are aspects of their childhood or memories or even people around their childhood that shape who they become, whether it be in positions of leadership or even perhaps even entrepreneurship. From your perspective, who were the key role models that have shaped the person you've become?
Well, my grandmother, late grandmother Mangange Nkomo, and my mother were the big influences for me in terms of shaping who I became, because both of them were business women and also made sure that I knew who I was and didn't have a doubt around the fact that I was supposed to be in the decision-making process. And later on, Mamuwini, who happened to have been someone that I had the privilege of spending some time with because she stayed with me for a few months, she really taught me a lot around being a leader within a context of making impact.
The book was so detailed in terms of everything you remembered, be it your first job or even your childhood. Did you keep a diary of every aspect of your life as you progressed into your career?
So over the years, I have mentored people and I've had also opportunities to give presentations in conferences. And more often than not, people ask the question, how did you get here? So I've had opportunity over the years to reflect on what exactly I did to make it to where I am, and more importantly, who were the people who supported me and made sure that I achieved what I achieved today. And so I had all these manuscripts and little notes around, and as I said earlier on, being able to use my notes on the smartphone helped me, because I had all these different conversations about different topics. And when it came to writing the book over the last 3 years, I've had to work through that process. At some point, I even had a personal coach who was a writing coach to help me make sense of what should go into a book around leadership and values and leadership.
One of the things that was mentioned here was gender diversity and making sure that we're well represented, be it as a woman of color or woman in fact. From your perspective, what more can we do to make sure that those conversations are always open, always fluid, be it in financial services, mining, or even IT?
Well, I think the whole issue around gender diversity in South Africa has unfortunately taken a back bench in the last 5-10 years. And unfortunately, we have seen the stats show us that we haven't made progress. And therefore, when we talk about the full transformation of our country from an economic empowerment perspective and even social empowerment perspective, we can't talk about racial transformation without talking about gender transformation. And therefore, I think and I believe that leaders, wherever they are, they've got to ask the question, where are the women, where are the young people, and where are the black people when we talk about issues of socio-economic transformation?
Before I let you go, looking back at your career, what influenced you in making the decisions that you made? For instance, if you were at a particular company, how would you know that perhaps this is the next opportunity for me or whether I should stay? How did you weigh up whether it's an opportunity worth taking or whether perhaps you were still at the right place and there was a lot more to be done?
Well, my career has been kind of an interesting one because I've tended to stay in a company for at least an average of 10 years. However, within that company, my time cycle has been like 2.5 years, because within 2.5 years, you feel that I have learned what I need to learn, I have done what I need to do, and I'm ready for the next challenge. So when you feel that you're ready for the next challenge, then the people and the leaders in the company, you have to engage with them and say, from a personal development perspective, what else is there for me to do? And more importantly, what opportunities are there for you in the company? So I've stayed longer because the companies have had diverse opportunities for me. For somebody else who's not in an environment where you can have those diverse opportunities, it's important to interview your next boss, because it's then understanding whether this is the kind of leader who will enable you to meet your purpose in life and also to meet your goals from a career perspective.
Last question, what do you hope people will take away from this book?
Well, the book has got many dimensions, as you've probably noticed, because my 12-year niece is reading it today as much as my 70-year-old aunt. And in between, CEOs and chairpersons and leaders in business are also reading it, and also young people. And the common theme for me is about people realizing that you have to lead with authenticity and also be values-driven as a leader.
Our recommended book for the week is all about negotiation, which is such a familiar part of our everyday lives that we often fail to recognize it's even happening. And How to Negotiate, Christopher Copperend shows the inner workings of all types of negotiations, from the mundane division of household chores to pay rises and high-powered business deals. By understanding the psychology and essential skills involved, you'll be able to bring enviable insight to your own negotiations going forward, giving you the confidence to succeed.